Welcome back to my channel. My name's Kira. I'm the founder of Paradigm People Operations Consulting, which is a boutique HR consulting firm primarily serving small businesses in several different niches. So we love working with e-commerce brands, agencies, service providers, and professional service providers. Shout out to all the attorneys and finance people we have that we work so closely with to help build their team and also to support their clients. And finally, event planners and wedding planners and other wedding professionals. With that wide of a niche, it is always fun to come up with topics to talk here on YouTube about. Before we go any further, I just want to remind you that the best place to get information from us, especially if you fit into one of those categories, is by downloading one of our resources or joining our newsletter list, which you can find below. So before we get into all the phrases that give employees the ick, which might make you laugh, or you might have an eyelid twitch after this, I'm not really sure, make sure that you are subscribing to my channel, especially checking out the new resource we have, which is our HR self-assessment. So if you are a small business owner, it's a great way to gauge your HR readiness and essentially your protection against any potential legal issues that come with the unpredictable and most fun part of business, the people. So first, let's just dive in and start with my favorite. We have definitely had clients that have said, but this business is like a family. We're all family here, things like that. And I think that when you're running a business for a long time, you kind of forget about the fact that there are a lot of people out there that maybe don't want to feel like business is another family they have to deal with. Families are messy. We don't have clear boundaries with our families. It is something that puts us all into therapy. We also don't write people up or take away their livelihood or change their responsibilities on a dime. There's also not an unconditional element to having a job. And if you are viewing your team like your family, then you're probably putting a lot of undue expectations on the way that they behave, which can really lead to burnout and other pieces of cultural toxicity that we can talk about in another video. I just want to make sure that we're getting this one out of the way because it's not just me that cringes about this because of the legal and ethical implications and maybe even some cultural ones, as I've worked in a business that really considers their team a family before. But according to a Preply survey, 38% of people said we're like a family is the most hated phrase in corporate culture. So when we're working in small business, we have to think about how our people are perceiving the impact that will have for them to work for a small business instead of a large corporation. If we're paying attention to what these surveys are saying, then we need to make sure that we're creating a culture that's full of boundaries and really healthy respect for each other. And so instead, why don't we think about saying something like, we care about each other, we prioritize open communication and mutual respect. We want to make sure that we are giving that feeling of connection, especially if you're really drawn to the we're like a family term, but it also maintains professionalism, which means that we're not using any type of emotionally manipulative language or even expecting something that our employees really aren't signing up for. At the end of the day, we are their boss, we're providing them a job, and things go much more smoothly when that relationship is clear and straightforward. I don't know about you, but I think I would prefer the chance to not have something be like family. Next, they're in so many job descriptions, and especially because it rings true in small business that our employees do wear a lot of hats. But the ick phrase that we're talking about now, you'll wear a lot of hats, is really translated to we don't have our roles figured out. There's no real clarity on the job. So you'll probably end up doing everything and you're not going to get paid anymore. In a small business, we are already competing for talent against companies that can provide really amazing monetary benefits that oftentimes we can't. The way that we are going to be able to compete for talent is to show up fully as ourselves and create spaces where people can really be fulfilled and enjoy the work that they're doing. In fact, a workplace insight study found that 52.5% of employees prefer having fewer responsibilities and clearer expectations. So this phrase can feel really overwhelming and not exciting for people that we're trying to bring on our team. I think that instead we can say something along the lines of, this is a really dynamic role that will evolve as we grow. and we're committed to defining expectations as we grow. That's honest, it's structured, and it's not chaos disguised as an opportunity, which I think is one of the things that we really want to make sure we're leaning into so that we can be competitive as small businesses, especially in an uncertain economic situation. When we see this in our recruiting posts, or when even our recruiting clients might mention this to us, and it's really, we are looking for a rock star, a ninja, a unicorn, something like that. Even job titles have been suggested to us that aren't traditional job titles, like the director of fun or things like that. I think that it's really key to realize that we're not the only ones as recruiters that have issues with filling roles that don't have clear expectations and are looking for something that legitimately doesn't exist, especially when you're using the term unicorn. You're really setting yourself up for failure there. And we're not the only ones. 49% of job seekers said they'd be discouraged from applying to a job that uses phrases like ninja, guru, or Jedi, because it's kind of putting out there that the skills and the professionalism that is required of our workers is a little bit limited. And we're making light of things that many people have worked sometimes decades to hone in on their skills or their craft. Additionally, nobody wants to be expected to become a unicorn, especially in a business that they have no familiarity with. Is it true that in small business people have to play multiple roles? Absolutely. Is it also true that sometimes our people become a unicorn along the way? Definitely. But I don't know about you, I wouldn't sign up for those types of expectations willingly. And we are already competing against a lot of things in the market. So what to say instead is maybe to think about, we're looking for someone with strong skills in people operations who enjoys working collaboratively in a values-driven environment. Or we're looking for somebody that has really strong skills in event management, but would like to learn more about managing people. Those phrases are really going to show that there are going to be multiple areas to the job that a candidate will have to fulfill. And instead of phrasing it in a way that is setting up expectations that are going to feel impossible, let's be really clear and direct about what it is that the candidate and the employee is going to learn and participate in along the way. Because I don't know about you, but if I have somebody that's going to be coming in that is going to be a real expert in something, but I'd love for them to tackle another side of the business, I want them to be excited about it and not feel shocked when it's brought up in one of their one-on-ones that we'd like for them to lead a team, et cetera, et cetera. What I think we need to do is let the job speak for itself. Clarity is kind. And especially when it comes to being a small business, you have to over deliver, because unfortunately, many small businesses haven't had access to HR support in the past, and it's giving us kind of a bad name. Finally, the last one is the "it's just business" cop out. And I think that one of the things that comes up with this is that we can tell ourselves that in our head when we have to make hard decisions. But the fact of the matter is, business is personal and it affects people's livelihoods, their routines, their mental health, even their physical health. And if we're boiling it down to "it's just business," it shuts down any type of emotional conversation. And it really creates a place where people don't have psychological safety and trust within their structure of their job. So we want to be really clear that when we have to make a decision that was focused on something having to do with the business, that we're really clear and direct as to why. If we haven't made enough sales in order to fund that person's position, we want to tell them that. If there's data showing that they're not able to perform in the way that they need to perform, we need to tell them that. If there's a reason that is really specific to your small business that you can't continue the professional relationship, even when it's hard, it's important to tell them that. Instead of saying "it's just business" and closing down the conversation, I would recommend trying something that shows the vulnerability that goes into making that decision in the first place. This was a tough decision. We know it has an impact on you, and I'm here to support you and talk through what's next. Additionally, if you're letting someone go, changing their job title, changing their pay structure, anything like that, you may not be the person that is going to be able to provide them that emotional support. But that's another episode. So just remember, it costs nothing to be clear and kind. And while it can be hard to be an emotionally aware leader, it is also going to directly affect your reputation. People talk about their experiences in business, and it's our responsibility to set the standard for what small businesses and in all of the different industries that we work with, for what employees can expect, because that's what's going to really bring the talent over to us and help our small businesses grow. So, I just want to say the last thing is that the words that you use to shape your company culture are really important. Be clear, be human, and don't use buzzwords that you hear on LinkedIn. If you have a doubt of how to approach something with someone, then make sure that you are verbally talking that out with a mentor, your HR department, or someone you trust, because the words that you say are not only going to give someone the ick, but sometimes they can have legal or compliance consequences. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button. If you got anything out of this episode, or if you have any follow-up questions, make sure you leave them in the comments, or feel free to find me on Instagram and send me a voice memo about something that may have stuck out to you. I'm so excited that we have our new resources for you, especially our HR self-assessment for those small business owners, but don't forget about that leadership archetype quiz, because that's going to give you even more resources and done for you, quote unquote, words that you can use next time you have to have a difficult conversation based on the type of leader that you are. So thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you at our next video.